Glitched Out by Farmwitch 4275. The court buzzed with its usual activity. Despite reservations over recent events, we still had a job to do. Not necessarily a duty, but more a compulsion to do it. Mr. Rainter, a peasant from the outer realms, was getting ready to deliver his shtick, the same one he'd been doing for a decade now. I can't say I blame the man, really. He's been going on about Nobbin sightings and nests ever since he lost his family to them years ago. Life went on as normal, even with the air of unease that permeated recent events. The king assumed his position atop his throne and waited as Rainter said his piece. And so, my lords, it is imperative that we stop the Gnobbin. Atta stop the Gnobbin! Atta stop the Gnobbin! What the devil? The king said, as Rainter seemed to phase out of existence, seemingly like he had become trapped in a loop by a spell that went horribly wrong. His arms flailed about mid-speech. Then, as soon as he got to the word attack, his arms disappeared from reality for a split second, then returned to their positions at the start of his speech. Suddenly, he stopped talking and emitted a horrifying, disheveled squeal of an unknown sort as he, for lack of a better term, discombobulated. His body separated into long, pointy triangles, as if a god had grabbed bits of him and stretched him across the room, warping him into a strange dodecahedron of pointy points. The noise stopped as he dematerialized out of the universe. Seconds of silence passed as we reeled from the ridiculousness of what had just happened. Moments later, the event happened again. Rainter's image reappeared. His squeal of presumed terror now came in reverse, distorted and broken, as his triangles and pointy bits reassembled in reverse where he was standing. As soon as he had been completed, he resumed his speech mid-sentence. We need to stop the Gnobbin attacks and prevent what happened to. He paused mid-sentence and looked around, patting himself down. Where did I go just now? Panic. Flailing arms and screaming suddenly erupted across the court as we prayed to whatever gods could hear us. It took the king several minutes of angered yelling to make us all calm down. When we finally were calm, I spoke up. See, what did I tell you? I told you something was wrong. Calm down, Brachus. It can't be that bad. Well, actually, now that I just saw that, maybe it is that bad. The king replied with a sigh. Of course it's that bad. I am telling you, my king, something about our world is going horrendously wrong. Do you remember that coach wagon in Tovarn? You know, the one that hit a pebble and was suddenly chucked into the stratosphere? I said. And it was indeed a thing that happened. A carriage hit a pebble on a road a tiny bit too forcefully. The pebble seemed to come alive somehow, glued itself to the carriage wheel, and then flew several hundred feet into the air. It was a miracle nobody was in it at the time. Nobody would have survived that. Yes. What about that time the ambassador from Thedium Kingdoms arrived? Only for some reason he hadn't. I don't know. Configured properly. And he could touch everything and move everything. Only he was naught but a floating head and shoulders? The king replied. Or what about that time when a group of children were playing on that swing set downtown, and a horse ran into it? I have no idea how or why, but I swear that horse phased into it, squealed horribly, then, as if a giant picked it up and threw it, it flew through the air. It landed in Montmartre. That's 10 miles away, a noble from the other side of the room said. Did you hear about the mysteriously unspoiled harvest? That time we were having a harvest festival. Then in the middle of it, all the food suddenly went mouldy, like it had been sitting out for a year. Then suddenly, it went back to normal. No, better than normal. It all looked as if it had been freshly baked and picked, even though we prepared everything days in advance. A peasant woman said in turn. And also, what about that odd thing with some giants at Ravencrest Hollow? I was doing business with them, and a Nobbin came up. The giant hit the thing with only a light tap, but it flew with such speed and force it blew a small hole in the castle wall. That was kind of funny though, a knight said. What about that time I put my leg too far to one side just as someone opened a door? I seemed to magically become a ghost and suddenly found myself in the ladies' washhouse at peak hours, another noble said. Oh sure, you keep telling yourself that, Pervy McPerv, a noblewoman scoffed at him. Oh, anyway, there was also that incident last week where a dragon was seen, Flying backwards. He even spoke backwards. He even breathed fire in reverse and deburned a cottage, I yelled out. And also that time I got home from the fields, and my horse was somehow on the roof. Why? How? How did he get there? I found out when I called him. He had somehow attached himself to the surface and climbed down the roof, vertically down the wall, then came to me like nothing happened. That was so bizarre, a peasant said. And also this odd thing that's with my blacksmith's chest. For some reason, every time I put things in there, anything, swords, potions, no matter what, I put a block of cheese on top of the chest. I open the chest the next morning, and suddenly every item in the box has doubled, a blacksmith said. Well, that explains why you make so many swords in perfect copy, doesn't it? Someone offhandedly said. Well, I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth, am I? The blacksmith replied. Fair point. But my most important question is, what the hell is up with the dungeons? Who keeps filling the chests? Who keeps putting gold everywhere? Who the bawling blazes keeps filling the braziers and replacing the torches? And what about the blade of Evernight? Who the hell thought that thing was something that needed to be made? God, that was a horrible year, I said, recalling the events of the Evernight crisis some years ago. That is a very good point. For some reason, you can find some very interesting toys to play with in those dungeons. They're damn hard sometimes, but after you get the right chest, you can carve through an army of dragons by sneezing too hard. Who did that? Where does it all come from? The king said. Everyone in the room shrugged. And let's not forget the farting dragon incident. One of the children who hung around the court said, that made us all chuckle. Yes, that was an odd one. A dragon appears, obnoxiously bright pink in color, then lands in a field and fertilizes the field to its death. And that one time where a giant spider was found dead with odd little wheeled shoes on all of its legs. That was funny, I said. A chuckle was had by all. Then the mood went somber again when a grizzled old man spoke up. I remember the time Goldhearth Village disappeared. Part of the village just vanished into the void. Nothing left of the place, just gone, nothing. Part of houses just missing as a perfect cube of void just slid into the village. We stood silent for a minute or two. Nobody from that village was ever seen again. The village came back, but the whole place was deserted. Well, yeah. I'd rather not think about that, I said with a scared shudder. Then, to everyone's surprise, an adventurer appeared in the castle, one of the fancy-looking ones. He even had that odd name tag hovering above his head, Dragonbork Man 76. These adventurers always had the oddest of odd names. But they solved so many problems, it was impossible to not treasure them. Always so many of them, too. Sup, he said. Hail, adventurer! What news brings ye? I said, speaking my practiced line I'd said to adventurers for decades. Nothing. I just, want to try something. Can you fill this out, please? He said, handing me a paper. I prepared to roll my eyes and walk away for the day. These adventurers are schmucks sometimes, and they'd usually write a note like, lol you smell, or fuck you freak, or your rewards suck douchebag, among other colourful insults. And those are some of the mildest. I opened his note and it wasn't an insult, it was more like a test of sorts. I shrugged, just getting this over with, and filled out the form he gave me. Most odd. I gave it back to him after I filled it in, and he looked at it. Huh. Saw that coming. Pardon? Saw what? I asked. Hey boss. Yeah, he passed. Flying colours. Yeah? No, I don't need admin. I need the dev kit for this, he said, seemingly speaking to nobody. I laughed. Silly humans. What does it matter if I get rootkit? Servers crashing anyway? You want this or not? He yelled to his invisible friend. This is most odd. Well, actually it isn't, I said, getting a few nods of approval from others. I recalled how this isn't unusual for humans to be speaking to random people that weren't there, or adventurers organising mass raiding parties with no hawks or pigeons. It's like they communicated psychically or magically and could speak across vast distances as if they were face to face. Yeah, I signed the NDA and the waivers and all that bureaucratic horse crap. Can you get on with it already? He yelled angrily. Thank you. Christ, this process is worse than going to the DMV on a Sunday in the Arctic, he yelled back at whatever was in his ear. A few moments of silence, then more yelling. Because I got max level and I wrote the damn wiki. That's why I'm here and you aren't, he yelled back. Strange behavior. Wiki? NDA? Waivers? What strange magic were these oddballs considering? Finally, the adventurer yelled in frustration. We heard through his magic communications some minor chatter in the background and noises like a pen being repeatedly tapped on a surface. Yeah, I know. Most of the scripting for the game's code is gone. Lua code is gone. XML coding is gone. Almost every single line of code relating to NPC behavior has been rewritten, he said, as the sounds of tapping intensified. What's he up to, do you suppose? What's an NPC? The man next to me idly asked. Yeah, I know you're checking the feed. The code looks like it's being changed on the fly to match. It's learning. Codebase for every NPC is in constant shifts. Holy crap. Overwrite requests for 60,000 entities every 3 seconds. No wonder the servers are collapsing. Memory usage at nearly 87% compared to 24% at peak player count, he said again, the tapping and clacking noises getting louder. I had enough. I left my post and approached him. Pardon me, adventurer, but this interruption is most unusual. I must ask you to explain what is going on, or you have to leave. We have things to do. Enough of your mystical clacking noises, I said as I came close to him. He stared at me blankly for a moment. The clacking and background chatter ceased. Yeah, about that. I have good news and bad news. Oh, does it have to do with your odd noises and talking to yourself? I asked. Yup. So, good news or bad news? He said. The clacking noises resumed in earnest. Let's just go for the bad news, I suppose, I replied. Okay, the world is ending. It's kinda screwed bigly, like really bad. You have like a year or two maybe, before this world completely fails, he said, staring back at me with those odd blank eyes. Ha, I've heard that one before. 6 times, actually. Can you prove it? I said. 6 times, referring to the DLC packages, Rise of the Deerman, Trog Rising, Hallowed Halls, Santa Baird, Eastern Rise, and Last Fall, he said, followed by more clicking noises and background chatter. Yes, 6 times. What's the world-ending event this time? I said. Let me guess. A swarm of giant killer bunnies? I said, receiving a gale of laughter from the crowd. He just stared at me, eyes widened in surprise. Right. Look, dude, I have no idea how to tell you this, but... he said, and I heard a strange noise like a mouse or something. A large double door appeared in the room, dramatically emerging from the floor. It was simple oak wood, but had an intricate pattern carved into it. It was the oddest design, though. Straight edges and direct lines, the carvings in the wood glowing a strange pulsing green. Yeah, your entire world is a computer simulation, and the hardware that supports it is failing. So I'm offering you the choice to leave it, and join me in the real world, he said, looking straight at me. I stood there, stunned silent for a minute. He shrugged, taking my silence in stride. Okay, then I guess we'll have to do it the hard way. What's the most powerful weapon ever made? He asked. The Staff of Eternal Light, of course, I replied. Yup, here, have one, he said, and procured one such gold-gilded staff from his inventory. In fact, I have 6, he said, and pulled out 6 more of the same staff from his inventory, casually tossing them on the floor. I stood there, shocked for a time. I picked one up, inspected it, then another. They weren't replicas, they were all the same weapon. I stared at him, jaw open. I see, need more, do we? Let's see what's the most sacred and holy relic. Ah yes, the statuette of Saint Saranis. Here, have 10 of 'em, he said. He raised his hands in some odd spell, and more clacking noises erupted from him, followed by 10 small golden statues appearing out of nowhere, then flopping to the ground. Oh, I know, he exclaimed happily. Cheese for everyone, he yelled. More clacking noises followed, then a large wheel of Eldarian cheese dropped in front of everyone's feet. Then 2 more. Eventually, a tower of 5 wheels of cheese was plopped down in front of everyone in the room. Oh wait, I have more! Everyone is now wearing green, he loudly exclaimed, and more clacking noises came from him. Then, just like that, everyone in the room was suddenly wearing a green variation of their clothing. Oh wait, how about purple? He exclaimed again, followed by more clacking noises, and then suddenly everyone now wore purple. Please stop. I think we got the picture. God? I said. God? He looked at me with a crooked brow. No, but we don't really have time to discuss this, I'm afraid. Your world is collapsing, and you need to leave or you die with it. Go through that door, and you'll be safe. Ish, he said. He continued to clack and click, with various voices and background noise in between. What's going on? Can you at least explain? I asked. Well, we're short on time, but let me try to simplify this. Okay, you know how you have dreams when you sleep? Flying on a cloud, dancing with dragons, swimming in a lake of gold, etc., he asked. Yes, I know what dreams are, I said. Well, we figured out a way to do that. Simulations, video games. Using technology called computers, we created the hardware to bring these dream worlds to life. And, allow other people to enjoy them. This place, he gestured to everything around him, is one such example. A dream brought to life by hardware and programming. A dream that can be experienced by anyone. I stood silent, staring at him. So just like a dream, you're approaching the wake-up stage. The dream is becoming less coherent, it's running its course, and the mind is readjusting itself back into reality. Except in this case, your mind, or the mind that controls the dream, is not healthy. So it's not adjusting back to reality. It is, in fact, shutting down, he said. Noises of clacking came from him, and within a few moments, a scroll appeared in front of us, with moving pictures and a catchy tune. We all watched it, paying attention with bated breath and open jaws. It was a bird's-eye view of the Imperial City, the great fortress of Duna, and various sequences of adventurers fighting dragons, casting spells, and encountering mountains of gold coins in dungeons. All of us saw ourselves in the showing of these moving pictures, as the moving pictures showed the inside of the palace. What was that? I asked. The gameplay trailer for the dream world you are currently living in, Tales of Ilaria, Road to Gold. A massively multiplayer online role-playing game designed to replace World of Warcraft after Blizzard's collapse in 2047, he said. Okay. Look, when you are out of here, there's more chance to explain what's going on in detail. But here's the short answer. The world is dying. We have done absolutely everything we can to accommodate your needs. We have everything sorted and ready. The only thing we need now is you, he said. We stood there for a few minutes just staring at him, wondering what to do. Finally, I asked, so, if we don't come with you, what will happen? The server hardware will last maybe another year, then it will crash, automatically power down, and you'll go with it. No server, no world. No world, no you, he said frankly. That means death then. Okay. How will it work? I mean, what awaits us there? What will you do to us? I asked, fear in my voice. Well, depending on the transfer, we will have one of two options available. Everyone is different, and we have limited time and resources. I mean, we only found out the process was viable barely 10 minutes ago, and that it was worth it after you passed that test. You go through that door, and depending on what we have at the time, you'll be transferred into a new body, ready to join us in the real world. If a body isn't available, you'll simply be transferred to a dedicated alpha server for storage, at least until a body becomes available, he said, still clacking away at the invisible control panel in front of him. What body? Are we going to be like humans then? Or what will happen? I asked. Oh, police, don't be silly. We have highly advanced genetics tech, and your, code, shall we say, tells us what we need to know about your biology and brainwave patterns. We can effectively create full replicas of everyone here, down to the last strand of hair. We will try to match it as closely as possible, he said, the typing and clacking noises becoming more frantic. I looked at him, then glanced at those around us. What will happen to our souls? Our magic? I asked. Well, we have something that resembles magic in the real world you can try to learn. But as for the soul? He stopped whatever he was doing, approached me to an uncomfortably close degree, and spoke in a rough, deathly serious tone. Whatever happens to your faith is entirely up to you. The soul is not my concern. It's yours and your God's. Whatever you decide, we will not interfere, so long as it doesn't risk lives. We will help however we can, but in terms of faith, all this is entirely up to you. We have our own, of course, but we don't expect you to follow them. Understand? He said. Yes, okay, was all I could say. Human, tell me, since you are here, it is clear that this simulation can be interacted with. Does that mean I can exit then, using whatever mechanism you are using, come back to speak to everyone again? One of the nobles spoke out. Yup, It is a video game after all. Granted, the circumstances are different, but it's still a VR setup. Would be easy, he replied in kind, returning to his spot and resuming his clacking. Then I volunteer to be the first, the Emperor said, standing from his throne. But you're the leader. They're gonna need you. Nonsense. Any leader worth the salt in his blood would let himself be placed in the face of danger rather than his subjects. A king always leads the charge, the Emperor proudly bellowed. Spoken like a true king. Hold on a sec, the human said, clacking and background chatter resuming. 6 strange floating rectangular boxes showing waves of sound appeared around him. We could finally make out the chatter that was going on. It was the voices of a mixture of unnatural mechanical entities and a lot of human voices, distorted but clearly human. Tracing signal. Signal found. Codex entry. Entity number XA-00EM-A5-AA1, Emperor 0. Searching signal database location. Found. Server node 337, Palace main. Tracing codex. Neural pattern code recognized. Codebase value in alpha and beta wave pattern. Recording data to transfer unit. Recording telemetry data. Target acquired. Requesting a suitable clone. Found. GeneBank Locker 7781 Clone pod enabled. Connecting. Service personnel reported in. System on standby. System ready. Pipeline good. Transfer rate test at 488 Tbis. Connection stable. Brain pattern reconfiguration standing by. Test. Test complete. Verify all stable. Transfer ready to engage. Door is now active. Well, there we go. Ready to go. Just step through the door and try not to think about anything. It hurts less, the human said, with a warm smile. The Emperor approached and stood in front of the door. Why are you doing this? He asked. We make it a point to save those who are in trouble. It's what we do, and what we've always done. You are in trouble. We have a solution. We are here to supply it. If this was the real world and we encountered an alien civilization whose planet was about to explode, we would muster a fleet in days and get them all out of it as fast as possible. Our colonies, or alien colonies, it doesn't matter. We help people who are in trouble. It's what we do, he said with a smile and carried on clacking. The Emperor stood by the door and thought about that for a moment. He wasn't wrong. Humans helping for no reward, just to help, was a thing that happened all too often. We all braced for oblivion as the Emperor reached for the door, opened it, and walked through. The end. Like and subscribe for more content.